Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Health and Wealth Podcast with your hosts, Tim and Carter.
What's trending, Enrichers? Carter Wilcoxon, founder of CSI Financial Group here, with my co-host and former wealth advisor, Tim James, founder of
ChemicalFreeBody.com and your new health advisor. This is the show where we reveal the connection between physical and financial abundance.
Hey, welcome back, Enrichers. Carter Wilcoxon here, ready to go on another show of the Health and Wealth Podcast. We are very excited about our guest today, who's coming in from, I'm assuming a little bit chilly, Denver, Colorado, Chris Aymond. And of course, I'm joined here by my magnificent Mr. Chemical Free Body co-host himself, Tim James. Tim James, how are you doing today, bud?
Doing fantastic, Carter. Excited to have Chris here, and I used to fly into the Denver airport quite a bit, Chris. I have a lot of relatives in Rapid City, South Dakota, and some podunk towns in Nebraska.
So you connect on through.
Yeah, Denver's a big, huge airport.
Well, it's been under construction now for, it seems like, 6 years. I saw some signs of life there finally today when I landed this morning. And so hopefully it'll be back to normal here before too long.
Yeah. My cousin actually drove down. He was in a band a long time ago, and we went to see him, and he was in the wrong part of Denver playing. Like, it was a really bad side of town. We had no idea. We just showed up. We're walking down the street, and then afterwards people were like, you shouldn't be like walking down the street by yourself. That's not a good idea. You're lucky you made it in here. It's like, oh, really? That's kind of freaks you out a little bit. So is there some pretty rough parts in Denver still? I would imagine it's gotten a lot worse.
You know, there's some areas that maybe are a little bit rougher, but what's happened, I don't know how long ago that was. There's been a lot of regentrification in Denver, and some of the areas which they now call Rhino was kind of more warehouse type area, you know, where companies would, you know, just do business during the day, and at night everything would be locked up, streets rolled up, but it would bring the riffraff in. Now that whole area has been blown up. I mean, everybody's building, you know, renovating. There's new restaurants, bars, stores. It's a hot spot in Denver. So hopefully there's not that many rough spots left, but occasionally you see a few homeless people roaming around there.
Yeah. Well, that's another testament to improving infrastructure. So important today for, you know, our quality of life and our health. It's all related. You can't have good health if your water's dirty and your air's dirty. You know, the streets are falling apart and making a mess. So anyway, I'm pumped and excited to be here, Carter. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing awesome. This is, I guess we'll call this our Halloween show. You know, we just got through celebrating Halloween. I've got my daughter who next week will be celebrating her 18th birthday. So very excited about that. And at the same time, you know, me and my wife are like, you know, Christina, we're just like, didn't we just bring her home from the hospital? I mean, that's how fast it goes, right? And for you enrichers out there that are listening, you got kids, you know exactly, you know, what I'm talking about and everything. And I know Tim James does for sure. Chris, how many kids you got?
I have 4.
Wow. What are their ages?
I've got a 25-year-old, 2 20-year-olds, and an 18-year-old. So I understand what you're going through.
Wait, did I hear twins in there somewhere?
You did. Yep, I've got boy-girl twins.
Wow. We're going to have to get a little bit deeper in that and everything, because that's always been, you know, interesting. I went to school with some identical twins, and it's interesting that, you know, identical twins that you go to class with, you know, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick them out, but it's interesting how you can they still are an individual person. So having, you know, obviously a boy and a girl, that makes it a little bit, you know, easier and everything. But I am curious about what that dynamic was like, you know, growing up as a parent of a boy and a girl, same age. You know, they hit different milestones at different ages. My kids are 3 years apart. My daughter, you know, obviously hit all those milestones earlier. You know, girls tend to mature sooner, but I'm just curious, what is that like to have a boy and a girl, seeing as we do tend to, you know, our maturation process is a little bit different?
Well, let me start with this, which is kind of funny. Oftentimes when people go, "Oh, you've got twins," I say, "Yeah, they're a boy and a girl," and usually they'll ask, "Are they identical?" And
Hold on, let me think about that for a second.
yeah, exactly. And then they're like, "Oh, I guess you're right. They can't be." But what's interesting is they have a really unique bond and chemistry together, but they are totally different personalities, different views and opinions, different look. You wouldn't even think that they were twins. My oldest and my youngest look more like twins than the twins do.
Wow.
So, but it's been great. I mean, growing up, they had their own language. They spent time in the same crib because that's what you do. You put them in kind of the same bed in the same room, and they're used to being together. And their nicknames were Seek and Destroy. My daughter was the brains behind the operation, and my son would carry the operation out, and he would always be the one that got in trouble.
Man, that it's so funny because as we all know, women are obviously smarter than men. I mean, I don't even know why there's an argument any longer on that. But we do tend to be the ones that act out, and we're the ones that tend to follow through with those those devious plans. Seek and Destroy. That's funny.
Yeah, it was really fun to have them. And what's funny is my daughter came out, and she is identical to the way she came out. And my son, same thing. Just their personalities and traits and characteristics have carried them through 20 years.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, were sports involved with either one of them? Was one an athlete, one not an athlete? Were they both athletes? How did that work out?
They're both athletes. My ex-wife and I, both athletes. I still compete and like competition in various sports. But yes, they did. My daughter played sports all through high school. My son, when he got to high school, they went to a high school of 4,000 students. So when my son wanted to play tennis on the tennis team, there's 250 kids on the tennis team, and only the top echelon are going to actually play. So he just kind of got a little frustrated with regards to the size of the school and the competition. So he doesn't play any sports anymore, but except tennis recreationally.
Gotcha. And then what was your sport of choice for your daughter?
My daughter played field hockey, soccer, and she played lacrosse for a little bit. And my son played lacrosse, football, and ice hockey and tennis. So we're talking like sports that they like getting in there amongst them then. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're Seek and Destroyers to this day is what it sounds like.
On and off the field. Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, and Richards, we're really excited about being able to share Chris Aymond's backstory from A3 Financial Investments. And you and I got a chance, Chris, maybe 2 months ago, we first had our conversation about, coming onto the show and everything. And you weren't really quite sure what it was going to be like. And in fact, even pre-show, you're like, well, again, are we going to be talking about this or that? And I got to go through compliance. I'm like, no, this is just giving you a platform so the enrichers, our listeners, get a chance to hear your backstory, how you got to where you're at today. So if you don't mind, I know you look like you're about my age-ish, our age, in your 50s, right? So you probably have a backstory and where you came from and everything. So if you don't mind, let's go back to maybe some influencers and what led you down this path of investment. Is it a math thing? You're just like, I just always liked calculus, and then something just transitioned. So share with us how you kind of got into the whole financial services industry.
Well, thank you. It's an interesting story. In college, I went to a small liberal arts school, and the closest thing at the time you could get to a business degree was economics. So I got an economics degree, and in the back of my mind, I'm a competitive person, and I always wanted to be on Wall Street. I thought that where everything happens, I want to be in the middle of it. I want to, have the high pressure, the hours, the stress. I wanted it all. And I wanted to be at work on Wall Street. So at one of the parents' weekends at school, a friend of mine's dad worked for one of the Wall Street investment banking firms. And I spoke to him about an internship. And at the school I went to, they had a thing called January term, where you do internships or projects 2 out of your 4 years while you're in school. And so you get out for Christmas break and you don't have to go back to school till February. So it gives you a time to do an internship or a project for a month. So I spoke to him about that, and he said, let me see what I can do. And he got me in the door, and I was able to do a rotation in a lot of different departments, one each week for that particular month. Well, I was in the corporate finance rotation, and the guy that I was working for at the time said, I'd really like you to come back and work for me in the summer. So I came back and worked for him in the summer, spent some time there. And then when I graduated, they were going to make me an offer as an associate employee there. The problem was that I had been working close to 18 to 20 hours a day. There were some days that I never even went home.
Wow.
I would be pulling an all-nighter trying to get projects done. A typical scenario would be my boss would say, hey, would you like to go out for dinner? And of course, I was living in New York City, not making really any money, and he's going to take me to a fabulous restaurant. So sure, I'll go. We'd have wine at dinner, and then at dinner, he'd start telling me the project he'd want me to start working on. So then he goes home after dinner, and I go back to the office and start working on the project, and he wants it on his desk in the morning. So, I was working ridiculous hours. And so when they made me an offer, I declined it. I was like, there's got to be more to life than working these crazy hours. The woman I shared an office with, she'd only had 2 weekends off in the last year. And, I love to work. I love to roll up my sleeves, but I also enjoy other things in life. So I got a job.
Wait a minute. There's more important things than just work?
Believe it or not.
Who knew?
Well, clearly they didn't believe that, but yeah, I did.
One thing I got from my coach one time, he told me, he said, I never forgot this. He said, your business or your career, your job, whatever, how you're employed, you have a job, you have a company, whatever. The purpose of that is to support your personal life. Most people, it's not the case. It's almost like the personal life is supporting the job or the career takes over, and the personal life lacks. And that's when all of a sudden you're sitting at the breakfast table and you look over and your son's 21 years old and and he's off to college, and you're like, who the hell's that? And you missed out on him growing up. It happens a lot to folks out there. There's a lot of people listening might be able to relate to that. So hopefully there's some new awareness here. Pay attention to your kids. It's quick. It goes by quick, didn't it?
It sure does. And, I would imagine from your standpoint, Tim, that with health and wellness, it's all about balance. And there was no balance when it came to that type of job that I was so interested in. I wanted so badly, and I got there and I realized that's not what I wanted to do. So I went to go work for a company out of Pittsburgh. It was a mutual fund company, and I was, for lack of better terms here, I was a wholesaler for them. So I traveled around the country, calling on various broker dealers and talking about our particular products, and had a variety of different territories throughout my life. I then was promoted to the Eastern Regional Manager, where I managed a sales team up and down the East Coast. And then I was hired away by another mutual fund company out of Boston, where I took over a territory for them that had been very neglected, wasn't producing that well for the company. I turned that around, took it to the number 2 territory in the country. They then asked me to move out here to the Mountain States and kind of replicate and do the same thing out here, turn that territory around. Then the company I worked for was one of the poster childs for what I would call the mutual fund market timing scandal that took place back in the early 2000s. They couldn't get their name off the front page of the Wall Street Journal. So, you were really on defense, and it was really hard to get on any offense. So I left that firm and started my own firm with 3 other partners. There was four founders that started the firm. We created one of the first alternative mutual funds out there in the marketplace. So what we were doing is we were going out to hedge fund managers and asking them to run a portion of our fund. And it was a 40 Act liquid alt mutual fund. And we had 14 sub-advisors at the time. And we launched the fund, and we took that company up to about $5 billion in assets. I have since been bought out. I left that firm to start A3 Financial Investments, to try to do something very similar to that, in launching an alternative mutual fund that provides benefits from an income standpoint for investors, because right now with interest rates so low, it's very difficult to find any yield out there in the marketplace. Most people are familiar with fixed income because fixed income's always been in many investors' portfolios. The problem is with the Fed lowering interest rates almost to zero, it's really hard for retirees or others to live or get any substantial income from their portfolio because rates are so low. So we decided to create a product that invests in credit. And credit is loans. So a loan portfolio. And there's different kinds of loans that are out there in the marketplace. But loans typically pay a higher dividend yield. And with broad diversification within that loan market, you can really devise a portfolio that has a very low correlation to many different market indices. It provides an attractive dividend, and it's a great complement to many investors' portfolios. But most people don't own them. So we created that product. We're out marketing it, and we've launched that fund in what we call an interval fund structure. We could get into more of that detail if you'd like. But that's kind of the background, or my background, and how I got to where I am today.
Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit, in your past some more and everything. And you live in Denver, Colorado. You've adopted, as we were talking pre-show, about, the Broncos. Obviously you got to root for your team. And, I moved out here from Kansas City, been a Chiefs fan my whole life, when I moved out here. But when I moved out here, I was also, because I was born and raised in Arkansas, I also, followed America's team back in the 70s and the Cowboys, right? We didn't have a professional team in Arkansas. But when I moved out here to Arizona, the Cardinals were here 25 years ago. Well, the Cardinals and the Cowboys, when I moved out here, were in the same division. When they did the realignment, I was like, oh, cool. I can root for the Cardinals now, right? So anyway, I got the Chiefs, I got the Cowboys, I got the Cardinals. So that's how I sort of got my teams. But we were talking pre-show, and I know you're a big Detroit fan. So I'm wondering, what was it like growing up in that area? Now you're in Denver. What's the differences between those two areas, and how has it helped to influence maybe some of the things that partnerships that you formed along the way with your current business?
Well, I grew up in Michigan. So, as a kid, as they say, the Lions have been rebuilding since 1957. It's, you like to follow them. You love to check in on the scores, and you hope they do well, but they haven't put together a team in a long time. And at the time, just before I was moving out here, the Red Wings were an extremely hot team. They had back-to-back Stanley Cup wins. The Colorado Avalanche and the Detroit Red Wings rivalry was one of the best in sports at the time. They were in the same division. Detroit was, in the Western Conference, and those were really, really fun games. I remember one time I took my parents to the game, and my dad said to me, he said, every game in the NHL should just be the Red Wings versus the Avalanche, because it was so good and so physical and so crazy. I don't, during the basketball era, I think as we had talked about back when, Detroit had Isaiah Thomas, Joey Dumars, Billy Lambier, Dennis Rodman, when they would get in the games against the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan and Pippen and those guys, those games were incredible. And now coming to Denver, what's been interesting is, teams ebb and flow. The Red Wings last year were just about the worst team in the NHL, and the Colorado Avalanche was favored to win the Stanley Cup last year. And, they were favored to win again this year, which I think is kind of a jinx. They've gotten off to a little bit of a slow start. The Broncos, they had Peyton Manning for a little while. We win a Super Bowl and now we're struggling. So, things ebb and flow, and that's what you find also in the work world. Things ebb and flow, asset classes go in and out of favor, in and out of style, portfolios change. The one thing that's constant, and that's change.
Amen. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because that's part of our, estate planning platform that I know we haven't really gotten a chance to talk much about that or whatever, but, we have this proprietary process that we call our 90 and 90 formula. And it's where we get 90% of, a household's estate plan done in 90 minutes or less. And to which the question usually comes up, well, what about the other 10%? Well, I'm glad you asked. The other 10% is that one constant that we're always going to have to deal with for the rest of our lives called change. And the beauty and the genius of our software and our platform is that when those changes occur, because the client is in total control of this with our team that surround them and make ourselves available to those households in real time, they can make any changes, edits, updates that they want to with their annual subscription of only $95 a year. So, change is that one constant. There's no doubt about it. And, it's kind of like, I remember I moved out here from Kansas City, as I was saying earlier, and the old saying back there was, if you don't like the weather, just wait 15 minutes, right? It's going to change, right? It's kind of like our lives, especially over the last 18 months. It feels like, that for sure.
Yes. And in Denver, they say, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
Oh, that's perfect. So now, how long have you actually lived in Denver then? Have you lived most of your life in Michigan or most of your life in Colorado now?
I've actually lived most of my life in Colorado. I've been in Denver now for 22 years. Prior to that, I was in North Carolina for 14. And then I lived a couple places on the East Coast and college. And then I grew up in Michigan. My mom's still there. So I still go back and I root for the teams. I was, as we talked earlier, but pre-show, I grew up a Michigan fan. My dad had season tickets to the Big House, and we would go, my brother and I, as kids, and watch the football games. So it was pretty fun.
Yeah, well, you guys have had a pretty good run. So now this year it should be really interesting, because I know that your main rival is the Ohio State Buckeyes. So now that, I think they're still undefeated, so you'll be looking to spoil some things for them this year, I would imagine.
Well, we hope so. Jim Harbaugh has yet to beat him since he's been coach. And since he's been coach, this would be the year to do it, I hope.
Yeah, I guess we'll
Carter, I think we got to take a break, brother.
Oh, is it break time already? Oh, I was just getting fired up, just getting warmed up.
I know, we're way past it. So we'll take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll ask Chris more questions. We'll be right back.
Estate planning. What does that even mean? When the inevitable happens for everyone on this planet, your estate plan kicks into action. But first, let's start with what an estate is. An estate is simply everything you own. Now, here's the issue and what needs to be understood when this event occurs. You only have two choices on this plan. Number one, either you plan how your estate gets handed out and distributed to those you leave behind. Or number two, your state decides who gets everything you own. For the first time ever, you can now take complete and total control of this plan that you've been deprived of for most of your life and generations before you. You can get personalized assistance along the way with a team of specialists whose job it is to make sure you have true peace of mind. It's important to understand that estate planning is a journey, and rest assured that our team will be available to you all along the way and at every step. Welcome to eState Plan, home of the last estate plan you'll ever need. To learn more, make sure to reach out to your local advisor licensed with us or go to our website for more information.
What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here. I'm back with my co-host Carter Wilcoxon. Today in the house, we have our friend Chris Aymond of A3 Financial. Chris, thanks for being here again, brother. Hey, I was wondering, we were talking about mutual funds but you have what's called an interval fund. Can you explain the difference between a standard old mutual fund and what you're doing with interval funds and why they're applicable today in today's market?
Sure. What's interesting about an interval fund structure has been around for a very long time. There's actually less than 100 interval funds out there in the marketplace, where there's probably over 15,000 mutual funds, probably closer to 20 now with the explosion of ETFs. But what's interesting about the interval fund structure, and it's something that investors or advisors should probably take a close look at, and from the standpoint that interval funds fall under the 40 Act, which is the regulatory body. Interval funds are registered products. That means they price every day. So you get, what the price is of your investment. You can buy it every day. You get a 1099 instead of a K1 like you would get with a limited partnership or a hedge fund. You also have transparency, meaning that there are semi-annual reports that are produced so you can see what all the holdings are and everything that you own in them. And you don't have to be accredited to buy an interval fund. Now, contrast that with a mutual fund. The only difference is that a mutual fund provides daily liquidity, whereas an interval fund provides limited quarterly liquidity. So what happens is you can buy illiquid investments in an interval fund product, whereas you can only own 15% illiquid investments in an open-end mutual fund. So what does that get you? With that illiquidity, you should be getting, or what the fund should achieve or try to achieve and seek, is an illiquidity premium. A lot of investors think that they need daily liquidity on their investments every day, but not everybody's selling every day. Whereas with an interval fund, if you know you need the money out at a certain particular time, you can put in the tender notice and you could get your money out. Now, interval funds typically offer anywhere from 5 to 25% of the fund's net asset value, or I should say the assets of the fund, available for liquidity each quarter. So it makes it fairly easy to get your money out, as long as, not everybody's running for the door at the same time. You'll get some of your money and you'll get some of it next quarter if that was the case. But it is what it allows you to do, as I had indicated earlier, with loans. Typically loans, if you're buying a loan from somebody, that loan, they can't quickly pay that off and be done and provide you liquidity. You're going to get a dividend stream from, a pool of loans, and, it may not price every single day. But what it'll do is hopefully provide you a higher dividend stream than what you're currently getting in your fixed income investments.
What kind of loans are you placing?
Well, our fund invests in what I want to call more non-traditional alternative credit. So we can own anything from reverse mortgage loans. We can life settlements. We could do litigation financing. We could do what's called regulatory cap. We can do CLOs. We could also do some private loans, and those would be to people that maybe can't get a loan at the bank, but need maybe some bridge financing for their business or whatever. But the interesting thing about the loan market is you don't have to go that far out duration wise to get an attractive income stream. In fixed income, you really have to go out long term to get long-term fixed income to get any type of yield. And even that yield is going to be less than what you can get in credit.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the difference in T-bills, right? When you're looking at it, 1 year, 5 year, 30-year note, but it's still nothing that's going to outpace the actual real inflation that we're dealing with right now, especially right now. But so just out of curiosity, then, how would you differentiate like a promissory note, sort of like that you're getting quarterly payments from, compared to your interval funds? I know there are differences, but there's some similarities, it seems like, too.
Well, there are. I mean, both of them would pay a quarterly dividend. We pay a quarterly dividend. And, we're owning a variety and a package of different types of credit loans, right? And by doing so, they all kind of operate and move differently in the market, which is why you'd want a basket or a portfolio of them to help minimize your risk or correlation to the overall marketplace. So you are getting diversification, and basically a loan or is kind of a promissory note.
Yeah.
Right? You're agreeing to pay at a certain particular time a certain percentage or interest rate.
Right. And then, and obviously it has a lot of this is that whole claims paying ability of the promise, right? On what you're going to be able to pay in those dividends as well. Right. Right.
And, different markets within credit all provide different types of interest rates. And again, that's why you want to have a basket of them. You don't want to put all of your money into one loan. You want to own a basket of them because some people don't pay, and you're assuming that a certain percentage won't potentially when you do make your assumptions, because not everybody does. But the return that you're going to get will more than offset, those types of defaults potentially.
Now, we don't get really that deep into like some of the financial things that we're talking about today, but this is interesting to me because we don't really get that deep into it. But talk a little bit, because you just did, from your perspective, the importance of having a basket of non-correlated assets for diversity.
Well, what most people think is that if I own a little bit of everything, I have diversification. But you don't get diversification if what you own all correlates together when you need it not to, right? So usually what happens when they correlate to one, usually there's a market event. If the stock market pulls back, or for example, when COVID hit, right, everything went down. Real estate went down. The stock market went down. Every asset class, for the most part went down. But
except toilet paper.
Except toilet paper. That's exactly
People got
right.
rich.
That's exactly
Filthy
right.
rich. No pun intended.
Right. So basically, by having a broad level of diversification and understanding the sensitivities of these asset classes to other asset classes, you can build a portfolio that when things do hit the fan, you are protected. Because there were some other asset classes outside of toilet paper that actually did well in March of 2020.
Yeah. So for the enrichers that are out there listening right now, we do have a lot of financial advisors that are listening. If I remember right, those are kind of sort of your clients that you're looking, to work with, right? Maybe a portion of their assets that they can use A3 for. Is that right? Or can you expand upon that a little bit?
Sure. Our typical market is we're focusing on the registered investment advisor and family offices. That's really much our bread and butter. And really part of why we call in that market is that it's easier to deal with the RIAs, and usually they're a little bit more sophisticated and understand and know how to use credit in client portfolios. They're not as transaction oriented. They're really more from a planning standpoint. And so those are the markets that we call in, pretty much RIAs and family offices.
So now, when you talk about family offices, are you guys trying to identify, like one family office or like a multi-family office? What's your, if you had to, wave your magic wand, if you're ideally your client, would it be a multi-family office or would it be like a family office with just, one RIA maybe running it?
We'd rather have a multi-family office. Usually they're managing money for a variety of different families. And a lot of times you'll get RIAs that will act as somewhat of a family office and offer some family office services. So, we'd much rather call on them. Not to say that we wouldn't talk to a single family office, but they might have a different investment objective or different philosophy, for the ultra mega wealthy family that they're running money for. Because a lot of it could be tied up in their business. They're doing a lot of philanthropic stuff. They don't have a deadline with regards to what they're investing for. Everybody has a reason they're investing. They're investing to make money go into perpetuity, basically.
Right. Maybe their IPS doesn't line up with the way that you would prefer for it to line up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I got you. So for you and Richards out there, not sure what an IPS is, investment policy statement, right? That's one of the things that's really important to put together. Now, when you work with other RIAs in these multifamily offices, are you sort of looking to identify specifically based upon their philosophical investment, theory, if you will?
We do. Yeah. When we reach out to an RIA, chances are I've already done a lot of research on them. For one, I've looked at their website. We subscribe to a database service. So, we know where they custody assets. We know whether or not they are open to alternatives. They might just do ETFs. Some of them just pick stocks. Those wouldn't be the ones that we'd necessarily want to talk to. We'd really want to talk to the ones that are interested in alternatives, maybe have done some hedge funds in the past, but are looking to really broaden their product base and learn something new.
So I have in front of me, and I actually didn't plan on doing this, but I just got this article today, and I thought maybe I would touch on it a little bit with you and get your opinion on it. But it's actually the impact of outsourcing is what it's called, the power of outsourcing investment management. And this was a study. Here it is right here in Richards, if you're watching, from AssetMark. And AssetMark's conclusion in their executive summary basically is that, and they talk about some of the five or is it 6 myths. Let's see how many myths are there.
8.
5 myths, right? So, one of them that I thought was interesting, I'd like to get your opinion on, is outsourcing eliminates an advisor's ability to customize investments. So, and I'll just read it, what it says. Just because an advisor outsources doesn't mean that he or she is unable to offer the customized investment solutions clients want. Most investment management outsourcing firms offer advisors the ability to customize portfolio solutions or mix and match their strategies to create a customized approach for each client. Outsourcing can provide the convenience of off-the-shelf strategies combined with the ability to create bespoke client solutions. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I would agree with that. I mean, that's partially why we're in business, right? Because for an advisor to go out and do research on all these different loans and all these different markets that they don't know anything about, really puts them outside their comfort zone. And if you're an investor, would you want to invest with that person who is doing research outside their comfort zone? I don't think so. I think you'd want to, I think of the advisor being a medical doctor, being a general practitioner, right? You come in, you get your wellness check, but if you have a heart issue, they're going to send you to the cardiologist. If you break a bone, let's say you need to go see the orthopedic, right? They're going to pull in these different specialists in different areas. And financial planning is very much the same thing. You work with a financial advisor, but if that advisor feels that you need to increase maybe your income component in your portfolio, he knows exactly where to pull from to bring the right investments into your portfolio to help you achieve that. Or if you need to reduce your risk to the overall market, how is he going to do it? Well, there's different ways to do it. Are people worried about inflation? Should you be buying Bitcoin or should you be buying gold as an inflationary hedge? There's lots of different tools that you have now in the what I'll call the mutual fund marketplace, right? There's ETFs, exchange traded funds. You have open-end mutual funds. You have interval funds. You've got hedge funds. There's a variety of different products, and each of them have their own specific risk return parameters and fit differently in a portfolio. And it's really up to the financial advisor to determine how much of each and what's the right mix of each. So I completely agree with that article.
Yeah, and by the way, I'll share this with you too, and maybe, in fact, Tim, we don't normally do this, but maybe we'll put a link in the show notes, and people can be able to go and they can read this or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I was kind of sort of wondering that, and again, normally we don't get this in depth about some of the things that are going on out there, but you're the very first guest where we've really not had someone that's doing that type of investment stuff, if you will. So I wanted to get into it maybe a little bit, deeper. And so your clients, just to answer the question, are more primarily, not the end user consumer, which is most of our advisors. That's who they're working with. Your clients are actually advisors that you can help with some of these solutions and ultimately, fixed income or with your interval funds, correct?
Correct. Yes. What I would do is I would go out or meet with or do a Zoom call with a registered investment advisor, and I would educate them about our fund, the characteristics of it, the features, benefits, et cetera, and how others are using it in a client portfolio. And therefore, if the advisor has a similar situation or has certain clients that they can think of that may have the same need, that he knows that our product could be one of a couple or a few strategies out there. And then it's really up to the advisor to do their research and decide which one of the ones that are out there probably makes the most sense for their clients. So it's really an educational process of educating the advisor.
Well, we love that, don't we, Tim? We're all about educating, enlightening, and empowering our clients, whoever that might be, right? It all begins, by delivering those 3 E's, as we call it. So, okay. One last question. I know we're getting ready to go to a break here, and we're going to get into the third segment where we're going to get to flip the script and everything. But how long has A3 Financial now been around, as far as, because I'm sure people are like, well, what kind of a track record do you have?
Well, we started the firm in January of 19, and we launched our fund in October 1st of 19. So we launched it literally a couple months before COVID hit. So it's been a little bit of a challenge. But there's really not what's interesting about A3 is our product is very unique and it's different. So there's not many other products. I can only think of maybe one that is somewhat similar to ours. And even then I could make some differences. So it is unique and different.
Perfect. Awesome. Well,
diversification at its best.
Diversification at its best. Well, I'm what I'm going to probably do also is, we're in capital raise mode for our new company that we just launched, maybe 2 months ago, Epic Services Company. And I may just ask for your, as a sounding board on what you think on what it is that we're putting together and seeing how that, how that brain trust that you have over there at your operation can be able to, dissect it and let us know how we're doing on our messaging and, what it could provide for in the future to the marketplace.
I'd be happy to help. Happy to help.
Awesome.
Chris, I got a question for you. So, I remember when I was a financial advisor, I'd have people come in that had mutual funds, and we would look up fees. And, one of the fees would say it would be between 0 and 4%. And I said, I was on page 134. And then let's call them up. So we called the company up and be on hold like DMV for a while. And we finally get to it. And guess what percentage they were always getting charged?
The higher end.
4% every single time. They had no idea. Now, here's the reality is when you have to manage a fund, put it together, do all that stuff. I mean, the whole purpose of doing it is making money. And if you have a good fund, you're going to make money, and the end user is going to make money too. So it's a win-win situation, right? And then they'll come back and buy the next fund you put out because you have success. That's what people are looking for, right? So that was one question. It was like the fees and these interval funds. What's the interval structure funds? Then the other question is, one thing I know I never liked mutual funds is that the mutual fund managers were kind of handcuffed by prospectus. So if they saw things changing in the marketplace, like COVID hits, and maybe they want to pull out of retail and go into more online or whatever, that they can't do anything and they got to ride the storm down. Do you have any flexibility inside of your fund?
We have a lot of flexibility. Let me back up just 1 second and address the first part, the fees. What's interesting is if you are only about fees, go buy an ETF, right? There's some that are actually free that are out there. Don't cost you anything. But what you're getting full market exposure, typically, because you're buying a sector or a segment of the overall marketplace. You're buying, let's say, the S&P 500. But let's say the S&P 500 gets hit and goes down. You're going to go down just as much as the overall market. And the reason you work with a financial advisor is they want to put together a portfolio where maybe you won't have as much sensitivity if that's one of your concerns. So if you want the cheap stuff, go buy the ETF. Then the mutual funds are maybe a little bit more expensive, but you've got active management where managers are actively managing the portfolio, whereas the ETF is very static. And then with an interval fund, you're allowing investors to access markets that have only been available to the ultra high net worth. And you can do it for very, very low minimums. These are what you typically, like a strategy like ours up until now, you've only been able to find in hedge funds. And we're bringing it to more of the overall marketplace and making it much more acceptable. And, a lot of hedge funds will charge 2 and 20. Some will, which is a 2% management fee and a 20% performance fee. We do not charge that. There's no incentive fee. We have a flat fee for our fund. And it kind of sits somewhere between a mutual fund and a hedge fund.
So then what about having flexibility with the fund?
Well, we have total flexibility with the fund. I mean, we kind of made a strategic decision when COVID hit to become very defensive in the overall portfolio. It was something that none of us have seen in our lifetime. We had no idea how long this was going to last, what kind of uncertainties were going to be out there in the marketplace. So we went very defensive, and it has paid off handsomely for us. It did exactly what it was supposed to do last year.
Awesome. Carter, do you have any last questions before we go to break?
No, I do not, because if I ask another one, that's going to lead to another one and another one and another. We could be here for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, well, I think it's exciting. Just anybody listening today, if you're just an investor and you're not a financial advisor, you might want to look into interval funds and just, get a hold of Chris and his team. I think it'd be, let your advisor know about it. That's, you have to learn about this stuff because sometimes the advisors, they don't even know, right? It's kind of like what they're doing in the big pharma's doing right now, where they're like, hey, you feel like crap when you come home? Yeah. And your legs, the rest, well, take the purple pill. Oh yeah, I'm going to take that. And then they go down to the doctor. Hey, give me the purple pill. And they're like, okay, I'll give it to you. Right. So, it's probably not the best scenario in the big pharma example that I just gave you. But if you learn about something good, you want to tip your advisor off to it, because a lot of the other mutual funds, I never liked them. I told people, I'm like you said, Chris, I'm like, you could just get a naked index fund and for 0.15 basis points, and you could ride the S&P 500 up and down all you want. Why do you want to pay 4% in a mutual fund plus more? It just doesn't make any sense to me, especially when they can't change. So anyway, that's it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll get back. We're going to flip the script on and let Chris ask me any questions that he has in regards to health. We'll be right back.
You want the absolute best for yourself, and you want it to be easy. That's why we created Green 85. It helps with detoxifying the body gently. We're proud it's chemical-free, unlike almost all other supplements you'll find. Bottom line, Green 85 will get you healthier. We look forward to hearing what Green 85 did for you.
To get this product and our other amazing products, go to chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com.
What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here. I'm back with my co-host Carter Wilcoxon. Today in the house, we've got Chris Aymond from A3 Financial, learning all about interval funds and structure. So let's flip the script, and we'll learn about the internal organs and body structure. How about that? Chris, what questions you got for me, brother?
Well, I've got a question for you. When we were kind of chatting just before we got started, you said you can help anybody with their health and wellness that wants to make a difference. And do people typically have to hit rock bottom or have something happen to them in order for them to really take care of their wealth and health? Because I'm kind of a exercise freak, and I like to exercise every single day. And for me, I don't understand people that don't, but I know there's plenty of them out there. But I just don't know what gets somebody over the hump that motivates them to decide that they want to grab a hold of their health and wellness.
Well, it's typically like a yo-yo pattern. And a lot of it's really not people's fault, because we're just byproducts of a really poor infrastructure as far as clean water, clean food, clean air, that kind of stuff. And then you got these societal conditioning and all that kind of stuff. And, there's endless amounts of stuff, right? So you got, maybe you were in band, you played an instrument, but you weren't an athlete. So you just never got into exercising, right? And there's athletes that exercise, and as soon as sports is over, the hell with that. They're never doing that again. A lot of people get out of the military, and some continue on and they exercise and take care of themselves, and some don't, So I think a lot of it has to do with just the pure lack of energy from the 85% of the food, or the nutrients being farmed out of our soils. So there's always these big things that we have stacked against us. Imagine, like, when I run into people, I find out that everybody's pretty much walking around on 15% fuel. Even if you're eating healthier and eating organic, and that's great, maybe you're eliminating some of the pesticides, some of that body burden from accumulating in the fat and the brain and the muscle tissue and the blood. But the reality is you're walking around on 15% fuel. So what we do is we show people not only how to replace that very quickly and make it easy for them, but go deeper, get to the root issue. Like, we have to, if your truck or car is not running, or the tractor's not running, you got to take it into the shop and get it fixed. Because if you don't fix it, it's going to break down, leave you stranded, or you're going to have a huge shop repair bill by putting it off, right? So check engine lights, same thing as a check body light. You're overweight, you're on medications, you have headaches, you have arthritis, your knees are hurting, you got back problems, you have gas, bloating, you just don't feel good, you're not sleeping well. All of these things are check body lights, and your body's telling you, hey, you're an intelligent system. Stop being dumb about this. You need to change the inputs. And then hopefully, a lot of this is just cleaning up a lot of the mess from the wrong inputs for a long time. Standard American diet has a lot of casualties out there, Chris. So from a 30,000 foot view, we're looking at, okay, what can we do? It's the environment. Okay, so we want to get your air cleaned. I have an air purification system behind me. I've got this Himalayan salt lamp creating negative ions, cleaning the air. There's essential oils being diffused when I into the air. That's good and uplifting and stuff like that. And I'm barefoot right now. I'm getting grounded. I have a mat right here. You see on my desk, this mat is plugged into the ground. Are you familiar with earthing or grounding?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I have bed sheets and all that stuff, and I'm grounding as much as I can, because I'm in a building and I can't ground outside, right? I'm not barefoot to the ground. So this charges my cells. People have this body burden build up in them. 95% of people are not drinking enough water. Simply by not drinking enough water, you lower your IQ and you lower your memory. Right, just by not having enough water in your system. And there goes Carter. Look, he's got his gallon glass jar. So proud of him for doing that. When I first met him, he was drinking beer on the show.
It's true. Wait, I think it might have been a
still does the beer, but at least, what were you doing before? You were just drinking, like, I don't know. You were drinking out of plastic, so I
was drinking. Everything was. I had no idea, but these estrogen mimicking plastics and
they're microplastics.
Yeah, exactly. So, and by the way, I thought there was just BPA and that's all you had to worry about. Yep. It was funny. So, I just went into our local water store that we go to get our alkalinized water and everything, from the machine. And, she sells plastic bottles, right? By 5-gallon plastic bottles, BPA free. And I got a little chuckle. But the funny thing is, as I was walking in, that BPA free 5-gallon jug was actually in the trash right outside. And I thought, oh, that must have broke or something. But I thought of you and you're like, yeah, BPA, BPB, BPC, there's a whole bunch.
DEFGHIJK elemental P. It's all the way down the line. There's like 30 of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, answer your question. Most people do, man. They have to hit rock bottom. It's like, okay, shit, my pants, I can't button them. And they get frustrated. I see it a lot where, somebody, their friend dies or gets really sick, somebody close to them. And then that's kind of a wake up call for them. There's a bunch of different reasons, but unfortunately, most people do it at the end. Like we get a lot of clients that they've tried. They come to us, they say it's the same sentence every time. I've tried everything. And I'm like, look, if you've tried everything, you wouldn't be talking to me right now because your issue would be solved. You would have gotten to the root problem and you would have healed. That's what would have happened. And that's why you're here calling me right now, is because you haven't tried everything. And a lot of times we just start people off with like, have you tried detoxing? What? No. What's that? They've never talked about that. So, they have a problem and they go into a system that gives them synthetic chemicals made in a lab that are acid-based for their carbon-based body. Might produce a temporary relief or a temporary fix, a Band-Aid fix. But, it's kind of like when my son's car, he ran over something. We were coming back from Eastern Oregon and that front bumper thing underneath that lip broke off and it was dragging, And I pulled over at the West Stop and I went and bought a pair of channel lock, the ones that they're like channel lock pliers, but they have the thing and they actually lock tight. You know what I mean? They can hold things. And I put that up in there and I turned it as tight as I could and I squeezed it and clunk and it's on there permanent. But it's just still a temporary fix, right? That thing's I guess it could fall off, right? But he needs to get that whole thing fixed. He needs to go into Audi body shop and be fixed. Band-Aid, because that thing could fly off, go up into the windshield to somebody else and kill him or something like that. You never know what could happen, right? So it's just a Band-Aid to get us down the road. And you don't want to do that with your health. You don't treat yourself like, you don't want to put on Band-Aids just for long term. That's not the way to do it. Those are only for short fixes.
Well, when you were just saying that, I was just thinking to myself, you get a flat tire on the side of the road and you get the little donut. Well, you're not supposed to drive around on the donut. It's just temporary, right?
Yeah.
You're not even supposed to go a certain speed whenever you got the donut on in there and everything. So whenever you're saying that, that's what
that's a perfect analogy. You got to slow down. That's even a better one than my plier deal.
Well, what made me think of that question is I've got a friend who I thought would have hit rock bottom a few times, and he could definitely use some health and wellness. Not only physically, but probably emotionally as well. And I just hate to see it. He was one of my best friends growing up, and he's overweight. He's early 50s, quadruple bypass surgery, blocked, diabetic, and he still is drinking too much and smoking. Yeah. And I worry that he's not going to be around, and I just wonder what it's going to take for him to grab a hold of himself and say there's a reason he should be thinking about himself and becoming a little more healthy in the world.
Yeah, a lot of times when people are overweight or they're in this guy's situation, it's just a form of self-loathing. There's something most likely that's much deeper. And that's why he's punishing himself. It's probably something from his childhood. It could have been from a death or from a breakup in a relationship.
Yep.
There's probably something there that's pretty rough on him that he may or may not even know about. This is usually what happens when we uncover this stuff. Because like when we went to the Hippocrates Health Institute, this detox and nutrition clinic in West Palm Beach, Florida, that's what you should do, is send him there. That'd get him in full immersion. So that would be very helpful for him. We see people that will after, they say we treat you like little eggs. I've told this story before, and you're very fragile when you get here. And we like to take you and throw you up in the air as high as we can and let you come down in the concrete and crack. And that's where the healing begins. Because taking away the food from you, that's when they put us on sprouts and sprouted nuts and sprouted seeds and sprouted grains and sprouted beans and wheatgrass shots and green juices and purified water. I mean, you're eating I always say like a chipmunk, like a wild creature when you get there. You're completely off anything that's processed. It's pretty much we're picking food and eating it. It's not the food in your life. It's the life in your food. You're actually eating foods that are enzymatically rich, and those enzymes are actually carrying electrons to your cells to start charging up your cells and burning out disease. So, a place like that, you'll go there. They take you off the dope, which is the food and the alcohol that he's drinking. So he's not really an alcoholic. He's a sugar addict, right? And his problem that he's type 2, he's probably is it type 2 diabetic?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what.
Most likely it is statistically. So let's just say he is. And, he's got this glucose in his blood, but he can't get it into the cell, right? So that's why his blood sugar is high, because he can't get the glucose into the cell so the cell can burn it for energy. So this is one of the most, he is literally causing himself his own problems. Type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular diseases are literally not diseases. They're poor lifestyle choices. He's eating too much meat, too much acid in his body, sugar and pastas and this kind of stuff that convert to sugar. And it's just slowly killing him. That's what's happening.
Yep. It's tough to watch. And that's why I was asking you this question. I'm like, I wonder what I could do to help him.
Well, number one, you could lead by example, which it sounds like you're doing. You might want to challenge him, right? You might want to watch a documentary with him. Maybe actually a really good one for him to watch with you would be Forks Over Knives, because they have Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn on there. He's one of the top cardiac surgeons in the world. And this is a guy that was like the top of his game. He was doing the bypasses, right? Where they're taking the artery out of the side of the leg and attaching it to the heart and bypassing the diseased artery from the poor lifestyle choices. And when he was cleaning up people's hearts for years and years, I mean, this is a guy that was like, if you were the Duke of Wales, like you were getting, Dr. Esselstyn was doing your heart surgery. He was like the top dude, the Cleveland Clinic. So you go in and he's cleaning out these arteries and stuff. And he looks and there's all this, buildup in the arteries. And he thought, wonder what that's from. So he studied it and found out all that cholesterol buildup, and there was animal fat. And he had a profound thought. He thought, I wonder if people stopped eating animals, if that would clean up their arteries so they could heal. And that's what he did. And they all thought he was crazy, like literally crazy. They thought Esselstyn had lost it. But this guy had common sense. He grew up like a dairy farmer on a farm. Usually people that grow up on farms have common sense, and not all of them, but a lot of them do. And then they gave him I think 18 or 19 of the worst patients ever, like quadruple bypasses, quintuple bypasses. They were just on their last leg. There was no more there was nothing else to do when it, no more stents. Nothing was going to help them. They were on their last leg. They gave him the worst of the worst. He puts them all on 100% plant-based diet just to heal them up. No oils, also no oils. And one person dropped out of the study, didn't want to do it. He died. And then at the time of the show, I think something like all 18 of them were still alive. And they actually brought one of the ladies on to talk, and she healed. In fact, actually one of the surgeons in the Cleveland Clinic himself, who was a fit guy like yourself, Chris, he started having a heart attack while he was at work, and he was fit, right? This is why I say 80% of people that are fit on the outside, their insides are messed up and they can't see them. So it's out of sight or out of mind. So this guy it's like, I'm having a cardiac arrest. Help me. And they did it, and they looked at his artery and it was all diseased. And then Esselstyn said, look, you're going to do this. And he did it. And then 2 years later, they took a picture of his artery again. It completely had rebuilt itself. There's the visual proof right there that might help your friend. Here's a healthy dude, diseased artery, plant-based diet, healed himself. So this is something that he could do very easily, and it's not forever. Just tell him this is a 2 to 3 year period. He'll be eating mostly plants. He could probably do small amounts of meat if he needed to, emotionally, if he's not ready to give it up 100%. But that's what's getting him, but usually we got to uncover that emotional component, but maybe that would help. People like watching documentaries. They like watching movies. And then it's not you telling them, hey, you need to go do this, and them going into defense mode.
Yep. No,
they really have to be open.
I think that's very helpful. And I appreciate that, because I'd like to help him if I can. But but again, it comes back to what you'd said before. He's got to want to have help, and
Yeah.
I've got to kind of have to convince him that he needs it.
Yeah. You know, and just being compassionate is really important, because understanding there's probably some deep down stuff going on in there that's really hard for him that he either knows or doesn't even know about. And he can also go to my website at chemicalfreebody.com and go to the coaching tab and click hire a coach. And then there's a little thing pops up and he can schedule a free 30-minute consult with me and fill out a health history form. And that's for anybody. Anybody that's a new client, we allow them we give them a free coaching call with myself, or one of the coaches will walk them through it and, you know, and help them get a map put together for making some change. But what's really good is if they just show up to the site, book the appointment, and fill out that form. A lot of people are like, wow, that form was eye-opening. Made me really start thinking about my life and see that simply by them taking the action, physics takes over. What you put out is what you get back. He would then start demonstrating to the universe that he wants change, and the universe will reflect that back, because he's going to get on the phone with me or a coach, and we're going to help him out.
That's great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problems. Any other questions about health in general?
Yeah, I've got another question. I know you work with athletes. When you have athletes that come in that you work with, are you typically helping them with their diet or are you working on fitness programs, and how do you help them get to the next level as a top elite athlete?
Well, it's actually pretty easy, because most top elite athletes aren't doing a lot of stuff that I've learned, right? So, you know, it's like food combining. Do you know much about proper food combining guidelines?
Give me an example.
Just like mixing proteins with starchy carbohydrates. That's kind of like a no-no, because it creates fermentation and gut rot and just, you know, and 123 chemicals in the gut. So what would that be? That'd be like a steak and potatoes. That'd be a hamburger and bun, hamburger and fries, rice and salmon. You'd think that'd be a healthy deal. White rice and salmon. Totally improper food combining, destroys the gut lining. Those intestinal villi get destroyed. So we look at things. I'm looking at things from like an energetic level. First off, we're really good at detoxing over here. So we'll take you from the top of your head to your toes, and we go through and we clean up everything. We teach you how to become your own mechanic and then maintain the body. Then we start recolonizing the gut with bacteria, which is very important. That's a huge part of your immune system. And then, you know, flooding the body with nutrients that are missing. And then we really focus on inflammation, especially for athletes. They're working out. They create a tremendous amount of inflammation. And I have so many strategies for knocking out inflammation. We talked about one of them earlier was grounding and earthing. That's a really good strategy. Water is one of the best strategies. If you get good, really clean, purified, and restructured water, for those of you on City Tap, that's really important for inflammation. Our turmeric 100 product, which is over here, this will cut your inflammation in half. It's a breakthrough in inflammation. Drinking the greens, stuff like that. But we do, we help out with diet. We help out with detoxing and nutrition, supplementation. We go through that with them. If they need to, we go through workouts and help them modify their workouts so they have less injuries and less soreness. I know as a baseball player, you know, you're lifting weights hard, but then when the season came, you got to kind of pare it down a little bit, because you don't want to be sore when you're trying to swing a bat or throw a baseball. It's just not what you want. You want to be loose and limber. So I'm just trying to think of anything else, but we're really focusing on that. And then the last thing, Chris, that's really important, which is a huge topic that I don't know if we've talked about before, but it's really important, is biophotons. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so if you can look up Dr. Fitzpop from Germany, he coined that phrase biophotons. So what it is, the sun, all life comes from the sun. And well, if you believe in God, he, she, whatever that is, your religious beliefs, God put the sun there. So all life comes from the sun. And it's these photons. They rain down from the sun, and they're captured right on the leaf of a plant via photosynthesis. And in photosynthesis, those photons are converted into electrons. So how does our body produce heat? Why are we 98.6? How does that happen? Well, we are a machine. We are an electrical machine. Your brain is part copper and carbon, and we have a carbon-based body, and that's how you make electricity, is carbon and copper. That's how they do it in the dams, right? The carbon brushes are turning against the copper brushes are turning against the carbon core. So we have this electrical grid in our nervous system, and then even down to our cellular level, it's electrons spinning. So living foods, that's why I talk about sprouts a lot. Sprouts are some of the most powerful medicine on the planet, food medicine, and most people aren't doing it because they're afraid of E. coli or salmonella. And there's more people getting E. coli and salmonella from eggs than there are sprouts. They get a bad rap, but the reason is because a lot of them were grown in manure. So if you can just get the seeds not grown in manure, like organic, veganic farming, then there's no mold. Another thing is to get seeds from farmers that understand sprouting, and they're actually harvesting the seeds for that. Because what'll happen is, like, let's say you have a crop of sunflower out there and it's dry and they need to be harvested, but they get a light rain and then they harvest. Most likely are going to be mold in there. So it's that's some of the keys. But these biophotons rain down from the sun. They're captured in the leaf of plant. If you cook the plant, they're dead. They're gone. If you blend it, you process it, you irradiate it, all these things, homogenize it, all these things that we do to our foods, you kill it. You're killing the life force, the electrons. So again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to increase your electromagnetic, your electrons in your body, increase the hertz of the cell. Dr. Brian Clement of the Hippocrates Health Institute said once people get this, all Olympic records will be shattered. And, I've got a guy here locally that does cyclocross. Years ago, I helped him, just put him on some of our products, did a few things. He's like, Tim, I think he took like fourth place or third place, and he was always way back down. And he said now there was this young kid, him and this kid were always like competing. And he goes, I beat him by like 30 seconds or a minute or something. And I was like, oh, wow, it's cool. He's like, no, you don't understand. In cyclocross, that's like a freaking eternity. I crushed him. And people are coming up to me and saying, what are you doing? I was like, yeah, dude. And this was right in the beginning when I got started with the supplements. I said, did you tell everybody so we can get some more clients? He's like, no. He goes, I ain't telling them. I want to have the secrets to myself. It's like, dang it. Get out there and tell him, John. So, but he wouldn't do it. So he wanted that. He wanted the advantage. So we want to give you the electron advantage, basically. And how we do that is we just help you charge yourself. So these living foods, I'll give you an example. Somebody who eats a junk food diet will emit 1,000 biophotons. Somebody who eats an organic diet, all plant-based, organic, but cooked, 23,000 biophotons. A newborn baby emits 43,000 biophotons. And if you're crazy enough to eat 100% sprouts and sprouted nuts, sprouted seeds, sprouted grains, sprouted beans, all living foods, you will emit 83,000 biophotons. So what's the cool part about this? Well, you're going to be able to perform at levels that nobody else is doing because you're going to have more electrical potential. You're literally going to have the shields up because when free radicals come to attack your cells to aid you and destroy your cells, they're going to bounce off like Scotty's got the shields up on Star Trek. And you're just going to have a much higher quality of life because every day we have cell death. We have like lots of like a billion cells, dies. We have trillions of cells, right? But a billion dies every day. And the question is how you're going to look, feel, and how you age basically is going to be based on your cell death versus your cell regeneration. So if you have more cells dying than you're regenerating, you're going to age faster, get older, arthritis, more problems, and degenerative diseases are going to come in. Then the person who, let's say, has at least equaled it out and has the same amount, right? They're going to be more steady. Or the person's actually regenerating more cells than are dying. That person is going to have a glow to their skin. They're going to have a vitality and a youth to them well into their 80s and 100s, and people are going to shake their heads at them. And, a perfect example is Dr. Gabriel Cousins. He was a football athlete, medical doctor. He's got a lot on diabetes. He would be very helpful to your buddy. Written a lot of books on type 2 diabetes and even type 1. And the dude in his 80s can do 30 pull-ups. I can't do that. And he did like 300 push-ups when he was in his late 70s. So, there are examples of people out there that are doing it. Now, I know for the listeners out there, a lot of people are like, dude, I'm never going to eat that many sprouts. Okay, I get that. And I know a lot of people are like, I'm a meat eater. I'm never going to give up meat. Okay, I didn't say you had to. I'm just filling you in on the blanks. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? So what we recommend people do is, and a lot of times we start off with raw food. So let me ask you this question, Chris. What percentage of your food is uncooked, unprocessed by weight?
Mine personally or generally?
Percentage by weight. Rough estimate.
I'd probably say at least half. Okay,
50%. That's really high. Okay, so for you, if we were coaching you in the beginning, we'd be like, okay, we want you to bump that up 10%. Okay, And there's some magic that happens at that 50% level, but you're kind of already there. So now, what percentage of your foods are alive, living when you eat them, like sprouts or sprouted nuts, seeds, grains, or beans?
Probably 5%.
Wow, that's actually quite astonishing. Most people have 0. So what we would do is we'd have you bump that up in the beginning 10%. It's just that simple. And you do that for a while, and you bump that up and bump that up. So the goal for somebody like you that's an athlete that wants to continue to kick butt, you're your early 50s? Yep. So you want to kick butt, then you get your sprouts up to about 50% where you have your raw foods. You're going to have it's a whole nother layering. I call it stacking the cards in the deck of health. You get your sprouts up there, you get your grounding mat, you get your acupressure mat, the sauna, those infrared saunas we talk about. I take a sauna every day. Drinking lots of purified, restructured water, you get your water right. You take our products, these types of things, you detox. You start learning these things, you get these new habits and rituals into place. We see people, they look 5 years younger in 6 months, and they feel 10 years younger. 6 months, sometimes sooner. So we just need to get all this man-made garbage and chemicals out of the body, and then and basically plug our bodies back into nature in the modern world. And that's what we teach people.
Do you have any, I want to say, like cookbooks? I mean, it's interesting to talk about, the sprouts and the sprouted foods, but I think a lot of probably listeners are wondering, well, what would you pair that with? What would you make with that? How would I eat that? Or I just,
yeah, absolutely. So if you're
on my plate and go to it, or like, how do you make it palatable so that lots of people want to eat it?
Well, what people are going to find out is, like, I'll just tell the story. I mean, I got into sprouts and I just started growing sprouts like crazy. Still 60-70% of the food I eat is sprouts, right? I grow that much of my own food, and it's super cheap. It's great for, crises and supply chain problems and all the stuff we're seeing coming, and food chains, delivery processes being messed up. So what happened was I started making these. I'd go to the holiday events and stuff with my families and all the different places, and I couldn't eat. I wasn't eating the food they were making anymore that I used to love. But I'd lost all that weight and got rid of my eczema and all these problems I had and acid reflux. So I'm like, healthy never tasted so good, right? So I'd make these big, huge sprout salads full of like sunflower sprouts and pea sprouts and alfalfa sprouts, and then whatever. Maybe I put in some spinach leaves, or maybe I'd put in like the arugula. That's a good bitter. And then I just make a great dressing, right? And maybe put some avocado in it or whatever. And people would always, people would take little amounts of it, but I'd have a whole big plate of it. I'd eat a full plate. I'd be full. And then after about 3 or 4 years of this, I forgot to make a salad. I just ran out of time. And then everybody came up to me like, "Where's your salad? How come you didn't bring a salad? Like, those are so good. Those are the best salads." And everybody was like, I felt bad. I felt like I was like, I got some weird ideas in my head that I was a weird person for doing this. I wasn't. I was living a real way in a crazy world, not the opposite. People love them. And the reason why people love them, ask any good chef what they do to have success. Fresh food. If you get fresh food, think about it. If you have a piece of fresh salmon versus one that was caught and frozen 2 years ago, it's not even the same thing. Not even close. How about tomatoes out of your aunt's garden? You take a bite of that compared to a quote unquote vine ripened tomato in the grocery store. Not even close. So fresh foods are actually better. So they're not going to have a problem with that. But to answer your question, in private one-on-one coaching, we help them with a complete meal plan. If they come into our group coaching, which we have a group coaching community, then we drip not only inspiration on our blog, but recipes. And then Coach Rebecca Wolf and I are actually building out a recipe book right now. We just finished up another ebook called our Core 4 Secrets ebook. I got to send that over to you, Carter. We just got it in. We're not, it's not like final edit it, but once it's done, I'll let it out to you. And that's going to be a free gift eventually on our site for everybody. People can get that for free. Talk about those Core 4 secrets. It's a secret.
Which I've heard about 20 times.
Yeah.
Classified.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff to do there, man. A lot. So it's fun for people that are geeked out on this and they want to like totally maximize human potential. I love working with people that are ready to do that. That's kind of the fun stuff, right? Those are the people that are like, okay, I get it. I'm enlightened and I want to just like really kick ass in life and feel good and not age and have everybody wonder around like, how's grandpa running around kicking my butt? It's like, I love working with those people. But I also, I still, a third of my clients are cancer patients, because when we got into this work, that was because my friend Charles had chronic lymphocytic leukemia, this is supposedly incurable blood cancer. So his story got out of him healing, and I had over 5,500 people to my house for dinner classes. So we've taught a lot of people what we've learned at Hippocrates and what we've learned in our own lives, just living this lifestyle. And unfortunately, a lot of the people, man, they got to get a big diagnosis or get slapped in the face. And I just tell people, don't wait, because it's coming. There's nothing, you're not that special. I mean, we're all special in our own rights, but if we're in part of this environment, we're eating the standard American diet, not moving much and not feeling good, and we got a lot of check body lights flashing, I was right there. I had surgery. You don't want to get surgery, and you don't want to go into the hospitals, especially now with the protocols they've got going on. So, take care of yourself, get ahead of the curve. Don't wait. That's my message.
Well, I think that's very enlightening. And, I consider myself a healthy person, and you're making me want to be even healthier than I think I already am.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. That's what we want. Yep. We have to raise our consciousness, and we have to raise our health, and we talk about this a little bit, but, I have my Truth, Freedom, and Health shirt on, but, you can't have freedom if you don't have health, because you can't fight for it. I run into so many people, they're literally dragging themselves out of bed, slamming some coffees and 5-hour energy drinks and all these things and these little, caffeine pills and doing what they can. They come home and they're so exhausted that they literally can't even play catch with their son. Like literally. And some of the best breakthrough moments for me is when I help somebody like that, share the information, they take action, they start getting results, and I get the phone call, Tim, I just played with my son for an hour. We played catch in the backyard, and I feel like I feel really good, and I'm sleeping better. That's it. Without your health, not only can you not fight for freedom, but you can't even spend quality time with the people you love the most, for God's sakes. And that's where we're at. Or like, my parents, like my dad, like his knees and arthritis is so bad. Like if he wants to go fishing or something, we can only go fishing where you can like basically pull a car up right next to the lake. You know what I mean? And that's typically not the best fishing spot. You know what I mean? It's like the boat launch, but sometimes it could be, just depends. So anyway, it's just so important for us to put ourselves first and take care of ourselves and never stop learning, never stop growing. And there's always more that we can do physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally, relationship wise, self-love. There's all these different areas of our life that we can always be working on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Chris, do you have anything else for Tim? I know that we've reached our allotted time today. Our enrichers have been probably on the edge of their seat listening and be like, what's next? But anyway, we really appreciate you coming on the show. And if you have any last bit of whatever, if you want to throw out there, go ahead.
No, it's been very enlightening. I really appreciate you having me on the show. I greatly appreciate it. And Tim, I've learned a lot in this short period of time. And I think you're right. We could keep talking for another hour and a half and it would be just as fascinating. So thank you for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. And hopefully you'll have me back sometime.
Yeah, brother. And if your friend wants to, like I said, I'd be down to chat with him. And something, I don't know if we talked about this before, Carter. We're on I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, but one thing we usually talk off air with the advisors, or your clients are advisors, right, Chris?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So you're actually the client advisor, which is fine. That'd be great. So, what we can offer is like, if there's any way we can, you can use me as a value add, then I can teach a class. We can record the whole thing, and you can you send it out to your advisors, and whatever, 10, 20, 50, 100 people show up, and then you record it. And then it's just a value add, because, having health is one thing, but what's the point if you don't have your health? And I think that's kind of up your alley. So then you could put that on your site and have it there, and, send it out from time to time, or have me back if you want to do a follow-up session on certain topics if people respond, because a lot of times people respond back and you might get a bunch of requests for a certain, talk about something, and then we could talk about that.
Well, yeah.
With advisors, it's weight loss.
Yeah, exactly. It's weight loss, or I'm not sleeping as good.
Energy. Right? Yeah.
Totally. Well, it's interesting, Tim, what we've done is I think maybe 3 episodes of this is like the 35th or something like that now. we've talked about doing that. We haven't actually had any advisors or anybody take advantage of that, but I would love if we could actually start that, because the reason why I'm saying that, Chris, you just got through talking about maybe coming back on the show. We could actually do it, and then we could have a follow-up show talking about how warmly and welcome that was received, because I believe, and Tim, you just said it, right? Without your health, all the wealth in the world doesn't even matter, right? So
everybody saves for retirement, right? But a lot of people, by the time they retire, aren't in good enough health, can't go travel, can't enjoy their retirement. It's a matter of taking care of themselves up to that point and continuing to take care of themselves. And then they can live long enough, enjoy the wealth that they have accumulated and saved for and invested for, and have a happy, healthy life.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you see it where they have one health crisis, and then they do everything right, and they spend down all their money just trying to get little teeny bit of health back. And then they go into a broken medical system that doesn't afford, there's no resolutions there. It's just more of the same.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to talk about that, offline. Maybe we'll do something like that, Chris. So, well, hey, Enrichers, thank you so much for joining us again today for another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast. To be able to listen to all of the previous podcasts, make sure to check out our website at www.thehealthandwealthpodcastshow.com. And you can always be able to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can hear us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We also have our own YouTube channel. For my guest today, Chris Aymond of A3 Financial, thank you very much. And for my esteemed, fantastic Truth, Freedom, and Health co-host, Mr. Tim James of Chemical Free Body, I'm Carter Wilcoxon, CEO and founder of CSI Financial Group and architect of the Advisor Partner Platform. Wishing you all a very abundant life, and everybody have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you, everybody. Hey, Enrichers. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Wilcoxon.
And I'm your host, Tim James. And by God, we are committed to helping you guys have fat wallets, flat bellies. So tune in again for another episode, and make sure to like, share, and drink a lot of water.
Or beer.
You have just listened to the Health and Wealth Podcast with Carter and Tim.